If the Earth stopped spinning right now, everything would end in minutes. What seems impossible is, in fact, one of the most catastrophic scenarios you can imagine. Imagine this. You're at home. Everything seems normal. The clock ticks away another ordinary day. Your routine is calm. Suddenly, without warning, the ground beneath your feet completely stops. The Earth, spinning at over 1,000 miles per hour at the equator, suddenly slams on the brakes. It's such an absurd speed that we can barely imagine it. It's like crashing a car at full speed into a wall, except the car is the entire planet, and the wall is inertia itself. There's no seatbelt. There's no time to scream, or even to understand what's happening. Everything not bolted to the ground would be thrown eastward at supersonic speeds. Cars, furniture, animals, everything would become a projectile. People, buildings, trees, even the top layer of soil. Everything would become a deadly projectile, flying like leaves in the wind. Entire cities would be wiped off the map in a matter of seconds, as if they had never existed. Inertia, that force that throws you forward when the bus brakes, now acts on a planetary scale, multiplied millions of times. The atmosphere, the oceans, everything would continue moving at over 1,000 miles per hour. Devastating winds and giant waves would sweep everything away. The result? An event of such absolute destruction that the word apocalypse doesn't even begin to describe it. It would be the end of everything we know. Human civilization would be pulverized in an instant, reduced to rubble and dust. No matter where you are, no one would survive the initial impact. The disaster would be global, simultaneous, relentless. The foundations of cities would be ripped out, walls disintegrated, everything destroyed down to its base. The planet would be reduced to bare rock in minutes, with no trace of life or civilization. There would be no distinction between rich and poor, strong and weak. Everyone would be affected equally, without exception. It would be the most brutal reset in the planet's history, a forced and devastating fresh start. The Earth's rotation, which seems so stable, is what keeps everything in balance. Without it, there is no order, no life. Without it, everything ends in the blink of an eye. The end would be so fast that we would barely have time to realize it. The moment the Earth stopped spinning, your body would keep moving east at over 1,000 miles per hour, the same speed as the planet's rotation at the equator. Imagine the force of that movement. Everything around you, including yourself, would be thrown forward with unimaginable energy. You would become a supersonic projectile. The impact with any obstacle would be fatal, as if you were thrown by a gigantic explosion. No seatbelt or protection would be able to prevent the disaster. Entire cities would be ripped from the ground. Historical monuments pulverized in a matter of seconds. Nothing would remain standing against this colossal force. A global storm of debris would travel at unimaginable speeds, sweeping everything in its path and turning the planet into a chaos of dust and wreckage. The friction of billions of tons of matter would generate enough heat to set the planet on fire, raising temperatures to extreme levels and making the surface uninhabitable. Global fires would spread instantly, like millions of nuclear bombs exploding at the same time, consuming forests, cities, and everything in their path. Airplanes in the air would be torn apart by the brutal speed difference between the atmosphere and the surface, making any flight impossible to survive. The atmosphere would become a global hurricane, with winds so intense they would destroy everything in their path, sweeping across entire continents. It wouldn't matter if you were on the ground or in the air. The end would be unavoidable, as there would be no safe haven from such devastation. The destruction would be total, with no chance of survival on the surface. The planet, as we know it, would cease to exist in a few moments. The oceans would also keep moving, creating a global mega-tsunami, a force of nature that cannot be contained. Imagine a wall of water miles high advancing at 1,000 miles per hour over the continents, swallowing everything in its path. Coastal cities would disappear in seconds. swallowed by this relentless force of nature. But the wave wouldn't stop at the coast. It would continue its destructive journey. It would advance hundreds of miles inland, climbing mountains and submerging everything in its path, leaving nothing untouched. Most of the dry land would be eroded and reshaped in a matter of hours, transforming familiar landscapes into something new and strange. The world we know, with its continents and oceans, would cease to exist, replaced by a new and unknown one. After the chaos, the water would settle differently. The oceans would migrate to the poles, creating a new balance. A supercontinent would emerge around the equator, with two giant oceans at the poles, forever changing the face of our planet. Earth's geography would be unrecognizable. A new world would emerge from the waters. The planet would become a world of turbulent and chaotic water, where the natural order would be redefined. Marine life would also be devastated by the shock and erosion, with underwater habitats destroyed and entire ecosystems altered. The atmosphere, with its own inertia, would continue spinning at over 1,000 miles per hour. Supersonic winds would sweep across the planet, pulverizing everything left. The friction between the air and the surface would generate extreme heat, fueling global fires. The sky would become a brown storm of dust and debris. These winds would last days or weeks, until the atmosphere lost energy. Some of the air would be launched into space, making the atmosphere thinner and thinner. Even underground shelters wouldn't last long. Earth would start to look like Mars, cold, dry, and without breathable air. Satellites would lose their orbits and fall like a meteor shower, setting the sky on fire. The International Space Station would become a fireball spiraling down. Each impact would create craters and spread more destruction. The sun would stay still in the sky. Half the planet would have eternal day, the other half eternal night. The moon would cross the sky slowly, taking a month to go from one side to the other. The cycle of day and night would disappear forever. The sky would be an apocalyptic spectacle of fire and darkness. The technology that connected us would turn against us in our final moments. After the chaos, Earth would have one side permanently facing the sun and the other in darkness. The daytime side would become a scorching desert with extremely high temperatures. The nighttime side would plunge into extreme cold, with ice caps covering everything. Between them, a narrow twilight zone, where the sun would always be on the horizon. Theoretically, this strip could have liquid water, but it would be battered by violent winds. No life as we know it would survive in these extremes. The planet would be split between an oven and a freezer. Life, if possible, would only exist in the faint twilight zone, and even then, under brutal conditions. On the daytime side, the constant heat would evaporate oceans and destroy any chance of life. The atmosphere would become dense and toxic, like on Venus. Without night, plants would die and the food chain would collapse. On the nighttime side, the absolute cold would freeze oceans and atmosphere. The darkness would be total, broken only by the still stars. Even life in the deep ocean would end, isolated and without resources. The planet would be half scorching desert, half frozen mausoleum. The balance that allowed life would disappear forever. For anyone who saw the Earth stop during the day, the sun would freeze in the sky, an eternal day, with no moving shadows. For the other side, night would never end, plunging everything into cold and darkness. The concept of time would lose all meaning. The twilight zone would have an eternal sunset or sunrise, with constant winds blowing between extremes. Earth's magnetic field, generated by its rotation, would disappear. Without it, solar and cosmic radiation would bombard the planet, making the surface even more inhospitable. The hope for life to re-emerge would be practically zero. Earth would become a defenseless target for the most energetic particles in the universe. The planet would be scarred forever by this new and deadly balance. would there be a chance of survival? No. The destruction would be so complete that civilization and life on the surface would be annihilated in minutes. Even underground shelters wouldn't guarantee survival for long. The planet would become unrecognizable, one side burning, the other freezing, with no magnetic field and a thin atmosphere. The human legacy would disappear in the blink of an eye, leaving only a thin geological layer. Earth's rotation, which we take for granted, is essential for life. Without it, everything ends, fast, brutal, and definitive.